There it is. It's good now.
Lisa, you ready?
Yes.
All right. Time is 6:30. Call this meeting to order. First thing will be the invocation. Mr. Hodges?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for
All right. You'll all join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Computer's locked up.
And as I say in every meeting, the rules of decorum are in effect. Next up, citizens' comments. Do we have anything? Okay. If we don't have any citizens' comment cards or forms today, citizens' comments are closed. All right. Next up, approval of minutes. February 11th, 2020 City Council minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 11th, 2020 City Council minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion on those minutes? If not, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, show that unanimous. All right. Next up is a presentation regarding the 2020 Census Bureau. Mr. Dahl, I'll turn it over to you since you have a guest here to do that.
Tonight we have Ed Cohurst. He's in charge of recruiting for Rockwell County, and he has a presentation for us.
All right, sir, if you'll step up there, if you'll push the button and turn on one of the mics, that way we can hear you. Just one, I'm not sure. I don't go out up there.
How about this one here? Is that working?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Mayor, council members, first of all, thank you for the opportunity given to speak just a few words about the 2020 census and its importance to our nation and to our community, and as a patriotic duty. You'd be surprised. I was very surprised. I'm actually a recruiter for the 2020 census, and my job is to go out into the community, specifically Rockwell County, and introduce people to the concept of working for the Census Bureau. To convince them that it's an opportunity for them not only to get a good part-time job, but also to help their community to be represented fully and make the numbers count. It's really difficult. People don't understand. I was surprised. People hadn't even heard of what a census is. So it's an educational process. There's a bit of a learning curve. But I go into the community and speak in front of folks like you all who make a big difference for us, because you can spread the word, the gospel, so to speak, that the Bureau is hiring. We're hiring over 800,000 people nationwide to work for the Census Bureau part-time. Right here in Rockwell County, we're hiring almost 8,000, looking to hire 8,000 people. My job is to convince people to apply online for a part-time job, and explain to them, what that means, not only in terms of money in your pocket. We're paying $22.50 to $25.50 an hour, up to a 40-hour week. And so you don't, if you're unemployed, that's a wonderful opportunity, and the opportunity lasts up until 6 to 8 months. It's not just a 2 or 3 week position. And the bulk of the jobs is enumerators, and as an enumerator, your job would be to go to the residences of different people who have not responded to the mailer. Now, for the first time ever, you are able to, as a citizen, you can respond online to the questions that come in the mail, or you can respond by email, or you can respond by telephone. 3 different ways you can respond, make it very easy. If you don't respond in any of those ways, an enumerator will come knocking on your door, and that's the people that we're hiring to do that. And they will come knock on the same door up to 8 times to try to get someone to fill out and answer the questions. That's how important the numbers are. The numbers, the representation determine how many people you're going to have representing you in Congress, what kind of money you're going to get for funding for infrastructure for your community, education, disaster relief. All those things are predicated on the number of people who live in your community. So that's why it's so important for us to really get the word out. And unfortunately, Texas is the only state in the union that is not putting any money up to promote the 2020 census. So we're doing it individually, on the state level, on a local level, spending a lot of money to get the word out and get people involved. So anyway, that's the gist of what the 2020 census is all about. And I have some materials here on the back table that you can look at, and perhaps if people who are looking for part-time work. There's one thing I want to caution, and this is, you can caution the people you know. There are fraudulent mailings going out to the people. They've been reported in the newspapers and on television news. It looks like a legitimate census questionnaire, and the questionnaire has 12 questions. The real one. They don't ask for any personal information. The fraudulent ones look to be the same way until you get to past question number 12, and they begin asking personal finance questions. Medicare coverage, what is your social security number? And unbelievably, many people just continue to answer those questions and return it back to the sender, which is very unfortunate. So just be aware of the fact that, that even in Rockwall County, those mailings are going out. There are criminals taking advantage of anything like that. Anyway, if you have any questions for me about on the application, online application, which is what I want people to fill out and apply for, I know you have, which is very good. Be aware of the fact that they are handling so much volume, paperwork, that their response time to your application is very slow. You have to just keep after them and keep after them. I was telling Trudy that I applied for my job last August and got hired in November. So you can imagine the volume of paperwork that they're dealing with. Don't give up. Don't give up. If you pass the background check, and it's a pretty intensive background check. It's a government job. It's something like there's a background check. There's a fingerprint check. It's like applying for a handgun, to buy a handgun. It's that intense. So they have to check all that stuff, but it's just so don't give up. You have to keep calling after them. You'll get email responses saying your application has been selected. It looks like you're eligible for employment, and so on and so forth. Then they'll schedule you for a fingerprint session. Then they'll give you the big background check where they ask a lot of questions. But again, if you keep after it, you will get hired because they need you. They need you. So my goal here tonight is just to simply make you all aware of how, well, I know you're aware, but to spread the word about how important the census is and how people can really control what the numbers do and what the numbers mean. So I thank you very much for the opportunity. Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Combs, you were saying a little earlier how many different ways someone has to be able to fill out the census, so that way one of your enumerators doesn't come out.
I'm sorry, Will, I can't, would you, the echo in here is...
You were saying earlier how many ways an individual has the ability to fill out the census. Can you elaborate on that so someone doesn't have to knock on their door?
Knock on the, again.
How many different ways can they fill out the survey?
By email, by phone, or by, what was the third one? I think, online, thank you. Online, email, or by phone, are 3 ways you can avoid you having someone come to your door. And the enumerator will never come inside your home. They have to stay outside. And the other thing that we are spending a lot of effort going into places, into minority neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods, because there are a lot of people who are afraid that that information is going to be dispersed to ICE and people like that, and they're going to be in trouble. The Census Bureau, in all its history, has never revealed any confidential information. The information that they get is held in confidence for 76 years. So we try to, to get to eliminate that fear that they have that they're going to have someone come knock on the door and put handcuffs on them. So, but.
Sir, what time of year will people be starting to knock on the doors?
What time? What?
Year? When? What month will they?
Oh, well, the actual census begins April 1. We've already started the census in Alaska, and that's, if you get, when you're hired, you'll go to a training period, a 3-day training period. Then after that, you'll go and what you get paid for, and then you'll go right into the actual work phase. And depending on what your zip code is, you will work within your zip code.
When will the actual census begin, though?
April 1. April 1. Yes. And it'll go on through the entire year, and you will, as an enumerator, will be probably employed for that and for most of that year. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you all.
And I think it's nice to reiterate, we went through some training here, a month and a half ago over the census thing. We went to a presentation. They are very, very adamant in the understanding that this information that's gathered for the census is in no way turned over or used by law enforcement, because they're out there getting numbers for the various programs. Like he said, it makes decisions on how districts are set up and everything else, but it is in no way ever used by law enforcement. They do not turn that information over. And folks need to understand that, because it's important that your numbers count. So thank you so much, so we appreciate that. All right, moving on to the next thing, which will be me. Present my state and city address. Well, y'all can see the PowerPoint up there, but last Wednesday I gave a state of the city address at a luncheon in Rockwall County, much like I did the year before. And I'll start it out kind of the way I did at the luncheon. Last year I said we're open for business. We're looking for commercial businesses to come into our city that suit the needs and fit what our citizens would like. And we're open for business. We would love them to come in here. A little bit of our history of our city. Right now we're about 3,400, 3,500 people. Since 2010, it was 152% growth. Hopefully with this new census, it'll show us a lot bigger. Open up some other things for us. We're 12.6 square miles, but that doesn't mean it's all homes. If you look at McLendon-Chisholm, we've got a lot of ranches, farms, people with land that want to do things with their animals and enjoy. 2/3 of our city is agricultural right now. As you can see up there on the slide, 1,400 homes, small businesses. Here's the part when I first became mayor, and you can see our first information about taxes and the tax roll and I was like a little kid in a candy store for a few minutes at home. I went, oh my God, I'm in charge of a $487 million city. You know, when I was a Marine, I was in charge of a couple $1 million and 5 guys. And I was at that going, oh my gosh, it was overwhelming to see that number. I expected us to be a big city, but nowhere fathomed that amount of value on our city. It's something to be proud of the citizens here that our city's worth that much in taxable value. As it shows up there, it's an 11.6% increase over last year. Our median home value is $427,805. We have homes that go all the way up into the millions in some of our subdivisions. And our property tax is still in there at 15 cents. We are the lowest in Rockwall County. You know? Right now, we are the 1.5 acres per home is what we look at for what our city wants and what our citizens have said they would like to see. So, you know, we're still rocking on. We're still building houses out there. This next slide is your city council and your city staff. The only pictures that are on there are the individual firefighters. But, you know, your city council, Jim Bloom, Trudy, Lorna, Nathan, William, Lisa, Shelley, Art. Well, he's not in, he's really good, but Jim, our fire chief, fire marshal, Mr. Michael, our city attorney, and then Judy's not here because she normally works during the day and she works up front. She's the first one you'll see if you come to the office to need something. But that is your city staff and your city council. The thing that we brought up at the luncheon was we just had our 50th celebration for our city. It was a huge thing. We had a huge turnout out here. Unfortunately, I had to call the city, the county judge because we had a frozen t-shirt contest at our 50th celebration. Never heard one before, but it was true to what it says. It was a t-shirt that was frozen solid, and you had to get that thing apart and then put it on. I didn't get mine halfway over. Those things were, I was banging against a metal trailer, and I think I didn't trailer. Those things were frozen, that's all. But it was a fun activity, and everybody had fun with it. You know, some of the things up here on who we are, you folks as our citizens already know that. We're conservative Texans. We believe in maintaining our rural lifestyle and our family-friendly environment. You know, our community first. You know, we are a small community, and we're still in a state where a lot of people know each other. We haven't grown so big that neighbors don't know who they are. You know, a lot of people know each other still. We've committed to a partnership with Rockwall County and our sister cities to maintain a style of living we all enjoy. You know, we all have to work together. We're all in the same county. We're dedicated to maintaining our open spaces that reflect our rural traditions with a mixture of ranches and small farms, multi-acre homesteads and land developments. We will support developers and businesses who partner with us to maintain our small town, our small city traditions, and our heritage. Like I said, we want people that fit what our citizens want, and people that are willing to come in here and work with us on what fits everybody. You know, not what fits me. My idea may not be the same as everybody else's. I have certain likes that make me unique, just like each and every one of you do, and we recognize that. You know, we worked hard over the last couple of years to bring back unity to the community. You know, the citizens spoke, we listened to them. We're committed to preserving our rural character and our lifestyle. We like commercial development consistent. We want commercial development consistent with the character of our city along the 205 corridor. That road's getting expanded coming through whether we want it or not. We want to make sure that what comes down the sides of that thing fit what we need and what the citizens want to see. And we're working with the county and TxDOT to ensure that that benefits all of us. And we'll be revising our comprehensive plan to reflect our lifestyle and our views. So those are things that are in the work. Other than that, folks, like I said at the beginning,
Actually, I have one question about it.
Go ahead.
Well, actually, two. First, Section 4 under attendance, there's just a little awkwardness in the sentence structure there, starting with the word shall. I think it could be clarified a little better. And I wanted to ask if the 75% absentee, is that a standard? Is that what we do for P&Z?
I think it's 3 meetings. I don't know that we have a percentage on it, but I think it was 3 meetings or more.
Yeah, which is in here as well. It just it is an either or. So 3 in a row or miss up to 75%, which I guess if we... Is it? Okay. All right. That's all I had. So with that one sentence in Section 4 being cleaned up a bit, I don't know if I need to read that.
Mayor, I'm happy to provide a little bit of background on the topic if you want to. At January 2019 council meeting, 6 citizens were appointed to council to the Economic Development as an advisory panel. Since that time, this ad hoc committee met a handful of meetings, but no formal structure was ever decided upon, and no recommendations were forwarded to P&Z or council. At this time, the committees most recently met and decided that the resolution that's attached in your packet is appropriate at this time, and it formally establishes the Economic Development Committee. And so the resolution includes the mission statement, membership, meeting guidelines, training requirements, attendance requirements, lays out the structure of how it will be organized and responsibilities, and also says that it will conform with Texas Open Meetings Act. So this just kind of formalizes the committee. If council adopts the resolution, the committee requests that council announce that any interested citizens are encouraged to apply for a position by March 20th, and further request that council make appointments to the committee during the March 24th meeting. So their intention is to kind of wipe the slate clean and have people reapply. Over time, a couple of people have dropped out that were originally appointed, and some others have shown interest, so they just thought they'd wipe it clean and start fresh.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution with a requested verbiage change or cleanup, one specific.
Okay.
Otherwise, as written.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Do we have any discussion?
Sure. When are we going to decide who the council member is that's going to be the representative? Is it going to be Jim or is it going to be you? Have you guys decided? Okay.
Would you like to put it on as a topic on the next agenda, since we have some time for that application period, and
Yeah.
can determine at the next meeting?
I don't have a problem with that. All right. Any other discussion on it? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Show that unanimous. All right. Moving on to 7.2. Discussion and action, possible action regarding the status of and completion of the Code of Ordinances initiated previously by the City Council or by the city. Lisa, do you want to give?
Yes, this is something that was started and never really finished. So in January 2018, Council voted to hire Franklin Legal, who manages our code, to provide an editorial and legal review of the current Code of Ordinances and suggest revisions to the code. Some things were outdated in state law. So Franklin Legal provided that review, which is attached in your packet. City Council also voted at that time to hire the city engineer and the city planner to conduct a technical review of the subdivision and zoning regulations, and that was done, so that was complete. A timeline was established for the remaining review of the code and adoption. However, the review of all the chapters was never completed by that council, and code updates were never formally adopted. So there is a summary in your packet of how far we got on each chapter as far as what was reviewed, what was not reviewed, and what still needs to be reviewed. I talked to Kirk Franklin today from Franklin Legal and kind of asked him about the best way to go forward. Our contract with him is gone now, so we hired him, we paid him, and then we kind of left him hanging for about 2 years. So I talked to him today, and he's told me that probably at this point the best thing to do would to be, if maybe council wanted to have a little subcommittee, maybe just 2 members or even 1 member in staff, go through and make sure that we have everything redlined that we want to change. And then you as a group, we bring that back to you, make sure you all are comfortable with that. And then he would go ahead and prepare ordinances without charge, and we could adopt all of those at the same time. The only ones that we would need to do separately would be our zoning and subdivision ordinances. And I'm suggesting that since the legislature's made some changes and it's been a couple of years, that we may want to have another look at those, even though we made some changes before. It might be time to just kind of look at them one more time. And then at that time, we can adopt those as well. So we're kind of looking at a 2 or 3 step process here, but I think we can probably get the bulk of the review done by the end of March, and maybe by the end of April have an adoption and have an updated code.
Lisa, would it be more efficient for them to review and make updates as needed if there's been any change in the laws over the last couple of years versus us going through it and then having them going through it? Does that make sense or not?
As far as just subdivision and zoning, or the whole thing?
Just having them go through it initially and updating what needs to be updated, and then having that updated version to whoever we decide as a council review it.
He said that his legal review, his original one, he feels that that's still valid.
Okay.
And at this time, he just needs some questions answered. There's some questions in the review about council preferences. And then the rest of it would be for anything that council wanted to change. So I know we talked about updating our code enforcement. We have very little in there. Chief Simmons needs a fire code in there. We don't have anything recent in there. Building official needs to update those building codes. So there are some things that we just kind of need to formally establish as needing done. So if you don't want to do a subcommittee, I can work and bring it to you, either all together or a little bit at a time.
I mean, I was originally tasked to look at this, and I started looking at it, and it was got a little bit overwhelming. I would appreciate if you wanted to work on it with me, Nathan. Sure. I would welcome that.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, Lisa, would that be something that maybe me and Lorna and you and maybe the chief
Absolutely.
Could work on all together?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
That'd be great, because I just fell short on it. I admit it.
I mostly just need confirmation for things. Some things were redlined by the previous council, but since we've had turnover, I think it's just something that you all would want to put your hands on and look at again.
Yeah, a clean sheet again to look at where we were. Because I got started and then I got bogged down.
I understand.
All right, then I think it's decided that these two will work with you and Chief Simmons and look at those things.
And our suspension is 31 March, is that what we said?
That would be my goal, to have it reviewed by then. And to bring back to you by maybe the first meeting in April.
Okay.
All right, then I think we've concluded that one. 7.3, discussion regarding personnel policy updates for consideration of approval at a future meeting. Lisa?
Yes, these were provided just for review today, so no, I'm not asking you to act on them. The policy was updated when the city created the fire department. Now that it's been in existence for about a year, we have a little bit better understanding about some tweaks that need to be made. A lot of it just things that came up during the year that maybe just needed clarification. So the bulk of it, probably 90%, is just clarification. The real substance change is to the paid time off. When we hired the firefighters, we gave them the same accrual rate for vacation, sick leave, paid time off, as those people that are working just regular 40-hour weeks, and they actually should be accruing at a greater rate, so proportionate to the hours worked. So a regular full-time employee works about 2,080 hours a year. Those firefighters actually work more than that. I think it's 2,800 or 2,900 hours a year. So we made that proportionate to their time. And we also capped the maximum accrual of 2 times the annual hours that people will accrue. So the longer you've been here, the more time that you accrue. There's a 0 to 3 year, you accrue so many days, and all of that's in your packet. And so that somebody didn't retire or leave with a lot of time on the books and we had to write a big check, we capped it at the accrual rate of 2 times whatever they've accumulated for their annual hours. So I'm suggesting that maybe you just take a couple of weeks to look it over, and at the next meeting, I'll bring it back for action. And in the meantime, if you have questions or you have a suggestion or anything that you think needs to be changed or addressed, just let me know.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, moving on to 7.4, discussion and action regarding establishing a Little Free Library on City Hall property and coordination of the book drive. Before I turn it over to Ms. Kipphut and Mr. Hodges, guys, this is an awesome idea for the community. Getting kids to read, even getting us as adults to step back and start reading again. It's an awesome idea to have that ability, and it doesn't cost us. It doesn't cost us as individuals that want to read. We can go to that little, this idea and pick up a book and read. I think it's going to be huge for a community. It's starting to pop up in a lot of cities, from what I'm hearing. Lorna, Nathan, it's over to you guys.
Okay. We had one of our citizens come up to us in conjunction with the big event that's going to be on April 18th, wondering if there could be a Little Free Library installed at City Hall. So from a logistics standpoint, I spoke to someone that is willing to build the library for us, and then we'll get the big event project to actually do the installation. So we'll be working with Lisa to determine the exact location on the property to do that. And then I was speaking with Nathan, and Nathan's actually done the groundwork for how you do a Little Free Library, so I'll turn it over to you for that.
Yeah, so just did a little research on the topic, and obviously they're all over the country, and it's not a huge project for us to kind of kickstart. Basically you sign up. I think there's a one-time registration fee of about $40 or something like that, and that way it helps. It puts our location on their map, the website. For instance, there's 3 separate Little Free Libraries in Heath, in a couple different neighborhoods. So, maybe we reach out to whoever school committee knows, and we kind of build up a little bit of a network with them, just to echo some of the comments with the mayor stated. The importance of reading is undersold in today's world. I think that having some access to that. I think that with everybody that we have in town, I think that having a little book drive as part of this will just be something that everybody can really kind of get into, get excited about, and it's a unique way to give back to the community. And again, I'm happy to kind of help coordinate and move things forward however I can help. So I guess with the council's approval, I didn't want to get too far along in this process without, number one, knowing it was okay that we could put it here on City Hall property. Number two, that the council was okay with us spending $40 to register our site. So those are the 2 items that I wanted us to just make sure everybody's on the same page. So what are our options as far as installation here on property?
We could put it by the building itself, up here on the porch someplace.
That would be preferable because I think
keep it out of the weather.
Yeah.
Shelley and I actually talked today about would it be better to even maybe put it inside in the lobby area, but then it would be closed on the weekends. So wherever your preference is.
They're going to make it waterproof, so
I want it to be outside.
I think I would prefer access to where, on the weekends, basically 24/7, where if somebody wanted to come grab a book to read, they have the ability.
If you do it, I'm sorry.
No, if it's all right with you, we'll just get with whoever's going to do the construction.
Okay.
Come up with a location.
Sure. If you do it under the roof here, protects from the weather, but then you would have to park and walk up. If you did it maybe out by that little island in the parking lot, then you maybe could drive up. So it really is just a preference.
I think that might be easier for the install as well.
Which one?
To do it out in the island area.
Okay. I mean, if you know construction wise, it would be.
I think they're just planning to use a metal pole and then with some concrete.
Okay.
They don't want to do wood because of termite issues.
Gotcha.
Well, I like the idea.
I mean, is it something that we need to make a motion in order to move forward with, or is the council?
You can come to a consent. It sounds like you've just provided direction, so I'll work with Ms. Kipphut and we'll find a location and get it going.
So with the both of you?
Sure. Thanks, Council.
All right, let me get back to my page now that timed out. All right, the next one, moving on to 7.5, discussion and possible action regarding providing exclusivity of non-emergency medical transfers to Rockwall County EMS. Jim?
Okay. I know this is kind of an odd one for us, given that we don't have any hospitals or assisted living facilities or anything like that where transfers come into play, but this was actually a request from Rockwall Mayor Pruitt as part of the Emergency Services Corporation board meeting. And essentially what Rockwall EMS is asking for is exclusivity for non-emergency transfers out of hospitals. I'm a proponent of this and for a couple reasons. One, we have very tight restrictions or guidelines and criteria that Rockwall EMS has to meet every month. They provide reports regarding their personnel, their equipment, incidents, response times, everything. And number two, and the others that right now may be able to do non-emergency transfers don't have to hold on to any of those criteria. Secondly, it does provide revenue for Rockwall EMS, which in turn helps the citizens for the maximum allowable billable rate for Rockwall EMS. Since those transfer fees are paid for either by insurance, Medicare, and then any differences in billables are covered by the hospitals. So this is really just a formality that Rockwall said they wouldn't want to do it without everyone in the county buying into it. Even though them and Heath has a Baylor facility, but otherwise Rockwall has all the players, I believe. I don't know if Roy City has.
They don't have exclusivity, although
right.
They have EMS station in their city.
Right. So this is, again, just for non-emergency. They already have exclusivity for emergency 911 response. So I wanted to put that out there. I think, it'll be ultimately up to Mayor Pruitt. Heath already requires it for Baylor. So, I think Rockwall EMS has been a good partner to us. Rockwall is certainly a good partner with us as well. So at their request, I wanted to suggest that we support it.
Trudy, let me start again with all the way down. Trudy, any comments, ideas, thoughts on it? Nathan?
If Councilman Bloom is comfortable with it, and Mercy Service Board and support as well.
Well, one of the questions that I have is, does this include non-emergency medical transfers, for example, let's say a hypothetical of a individual who has to go to dialysis, needing a non-emergency medical transfer to that location? Would that Rockwall EMS be that vendor to take them to it? Because a lot of people, especially older people on Medicare, Medicaid, I do know that Rockwall EMS is out of network for several different insurance agencies. So I don't want to put our citizens at a disadvantage by not having the ability for that medical transfer.
I can get an answer for that. The only discussion that was brought up in the meeting was specific to facilities, not individuals.
Okay.
So I don't think that, for example, I know AMR and I'm sure Legion and other have the vans, just like vans that can help people. It's not actually an ambulance for every time. So it's still medical transport. That wasn't part of this discussion, but I'll get clarification for that.
Okay. Yeah, because that's my big concern is I don't want any of our citizens to be disadvantaged.
Right. Yeah, and it should be facilities only. And that's all I would be comfortable with supporting, because that was all we really talked about, and I agree with what you're saying.
And Rockwell EMS is going to have the fleet capacity to be able to do.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. That it would actually be a bonus, because right now they have 3 ambulances and they cover the transfers with those. If they had an absolute lock on it for all non-emergency transfers, they would actually add a unit, certainly during peak hours. I don't know if it's 24 hours, but they would add a unit that would ultimately be available if there wasn't a transfer and there was an emergency call. So it would actually add capacity for Rockwell EMS. Where that would operate out of, I'm not sure. I don't know on that, where they would position that one.
I don't know the answer. Is Rockwell EMS a private corporation or a part of the city of Rockwell?
They're private.
So they're private.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my question too with Will, is using, limiting our citizens' access to have to just use Rockwell EMS.
Right.
If their insurance wouldn't cover it, then they would be at a disadvantage.
Right, and this, speaking specifically to the facilities, hospitals that say Presby sends you to Presby, Dallas. If the insurance doesn't cover it, typically, and I don't know the details of it, they'll have an agreement with Presby. The hospital itself, that they'll get paid their transfer fee no matter what, which in EMS, a lot of billing doesn't get paid. It's pretty rough business to be in, because whether that's Medicare, Medicaid, or just private pay that doesn't get paid. So this is a guaranteed paid, so it boosts their revenue, which allows them to not have to increase their maximum allowable billable rate, which is actually one of the things on the topic right now of raising that 3% maximum. And the exclusivity is a way to keep that from being a necessity.
But we don't really care if they get a profit. I mean,
No, we don't. No, but what I'm saying is it does ultimately help keep the cost down for individual citizens. Because right now, I forget the number, so I want to say 49% are Medicare, Medicaid, so whatever they pay is, and I may be off slightly, and then the remaining percent is not, and of that, 65% or whatever is insured. So by doing this, it's able to offset some of those gaps. Because they're going to respond to everybody, obviously. Everyone gets the same level of care. The transfers is just something that it's kind of the low-hanging fruit in the business.
So what would be the benefit to our citizens for doing that?
It keeps them, the costs of operating Rockwell EMS is offset more by the hospital transfers than by the individual 911 calls. So the hospitals end up paying whatever insurance doesn't or whatever agreement they have. Mitch Ownby and Martin Ramirez, both proposed this, and whatever deal they have, they said was significant, allowing them to not have to worry about increasing that MAB to the citizens directly.
It leads into a question I have. Are you done with your
No, go
questions?
ahead.
Okay.
I mean, I might have more. I don't know.
When it says non-emergency medical transfers, is there guidelines of what they consider non-emergency? And there's a reason I'm asking that. Because through my career, I've seen times where you'll see an ambulance come into a neighborhood that's got children's hospital on it, and they come in and pick up a child and transport them. I don't know if that's emergency or non-emergency. I'd hate to get us in a position to where we subject somebody that may need or may be using that for whatever reason, saying, oh no, you can't do it, you have to use Rockwell EMS now.
Well, children's is unique in the sense that they have planes, helicopters,
Right. No, I get it.
and they use whatever they need. So typically when they're involved specifically into that, that's already coordinated with a doctor, and there's probably a patient that they're very familiar with, and they have the expertise for pediatric intensive care or critical care, whatever it may be. You can have emergency transfers from hospitals, which would go to the 911, and they do have to follow the same response times as any other emergency call. And that may be a stroke patient, and I'm not speaking to the capabilities of the hospital. Let's say they get the initial TPA at Presby, and they want to get an intervention at Presby Dallas. That would be an emergency transfer. A non-emergency may be that this patient, they want to admit them to Presby Dallas, but they can go now, they can go 4 o'clock this afternoon, just whenever the schedule with the receiving doctor and the ambulance service and all that, there's people that coordinate all that type of thing. So that would classify as a non-emergency. Nursing homes, assisted living, they have emergency transfers as well. Breathing difficulties, codes, anything like that. So the non-emergency is like the name implies, it needs to happen, but it's not on a strict timeline.
I think it's important to point out, make sure the council's aware that Rockwell EMS entered into an exclusivity agreement with the county, if I'm correct, 3 years ago. Okay. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. So sure. That's good knowledge. That was, negotiated with the county. The county looked at or interviewed, I think, 3 other ambulance companies and renewed their agreement with Rockwell EMS.
Zamar, Care Flight.
Right.
Heath does have an exclusivity, and the city of Rockwell does.
Yeah. Well, City of Rockwell is considering it.
Oh, considering it, I'm sorry. Okay.
I think Mayor Nichols is not. I don't know her exact status of that, but that's something that Jim and Mayor Pruitt will work out with her.
What I would like to see, and of course council can make the final decision, is I kind of like the answers to what William asked. I think we need to think on this one and bring it back at the next council and get those answers.
Okay.
What's the feasibility of having somebody from Rockwell EMS
Come out next time? Absolutely. I mean, that's fine.
That would probably be
Yeah.
a good use of our time before.
Right, because I just want to make sure we're doing what's right for the citizens. I understand exclusivity, I understand, needs, standards, everything there, but I just want to make sure we're making the right decision and that it doesn't affect us or hurt somebody out there that needs medical service.
Right. All right, get clarification on if it's the routine, like kidney dialysis or whatever, maybe somebody like that.
Well, it's more important where the call originates. If it's from a home, and I'll get confirmation on this, but if it's from a home, that's not the, I'll make sure that's not the exclusivity. It's from the facilities themselves.
Okay.
And speaking to that, it's just, if this non-emergency medical transfer specifically from facilities, well, City of McLendon-Chisholm doesn't have any facilities. So
I know, and that's what I started this whole thing.
Right.
It doesn't. Will we have one someday? I don't know. So it's just Mayor Pruitt requested that from the county, and I just brought it to the council.
Sure, absolutely. And no, we don't need to sound like...
No, I get it. I respect all the questions.
The other question that it would bring up is there a timeline of this exclusivity? Is it indefinite? Is it for X amount of years? Because just like everybody's kind of looking at is, we don't have facilities right now, but someday if we did, is that gonna hurt them? Because the exclusivity could be an indefinite amount of time.
Well, I suspect it would parallel their contract, which is a 5-year contract, renewable annually.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with their contract. But yeah, if we can get them in here and give us...
I'll find out. Mitch, if anyone knows him, was actually involved in a bad car accident.
Yes, I was...
Blew out 2 of his...
Him and his wife.
Yeah.
were in a very bad car accident.
They both had.
I heard he's up and around a little bit.
Yeah. Just in a brace.
Surprising.
They're fortunate, no deficits.
But if we can arrange that for the next meeting, absolutely.
Okay. Follow up.
All right. Then we'll move on to 7.6, discussion and action regarding a proposal from Teague, is it Dahl and Perkins, Inc., to provide engineering design services for a sanitary sewer line on Highway 205. Lisa?
Yes, a little bit of background, Mayor. As most of you know, or all of you know, that Sonoma Verde is the only neighborhood in the city that has sewer at this time. From time to time, we do get inquiries or applicants interested in developing along 205, especially around the corner of 205 and 550. We feel like, or I feel like, we've also got an existing restaurant and gas station across the street, and that one is on a septic system. I feel like that even if council someday redoes a comp plan or redoes some zoning, I think that corner is very likely just to stay commercial because there's already commercial there. So I've asked Chris Cooney of this company to develop a proposal for engineering design services. And what's happened is, as I talk to developers, they ask me, well, how much would it cost if we put in sewer? And I don't have a good answer for them. I can estimate, but I really don't know how close I am to those on the costs. At some point in time, I just feel like we're going to need sewer there. So this would be an opportunity for us to pay for the engineering services. And at the time construction happens, whether it's sooner or later, some of those costs could be charged back to developers. We would be out the money up front, but this would be our contribution to start with as far as that. So Chris Cooney is here if he'd like to maybe present his proposal and answer any questions that you might have regarding that.
Absolutely. Chris? You're in the hot seat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. First of all, I just want to say it's a real pleasure to be here. What a nice environment now, and I just appreciate y'all's service to the community. And as I sit back here and listen to some of the items you're on, it really takes me back to my time as mayor. 3,400 people. I mean, you're just almost there to home rule status. So, you know, that's a significant, turn of the page for you guys. Talking about EMS, we had the same discussion with Mitch back, 15, 20 years ago. So I commend you guys for your service. My name is Chris Cooney. I am a principal with the firm Teague, Dahl and Perkins. Effective December 31st of last year, I merged my company, FC Cooney Corporation, with Teague, Dahl and Perkins. We still maintain our office in Heath, Texas. And for those of you, I think most of you know, but I was also the design engineer for all the improvements and the actual sewer system that's in place for Sonoma Verde, including the off-site line that goes all the way to the city of Heath. We were contacted initially by Mr. Polani. I think you guys have seen, and he's come before you, about helping him design the line. And I think that started a series of discussions. And the question is, how far do you want to go, and how much do you want to try and serve, and that obviously determines the cost and our scope of work. So Lisa called me, and we put together a proposal, and what we're proposing to offer for you is to basically look at the options and come up with a wastewater plan to serve the areas along Highway 205, which right now, of course, is where your commercial activity is, and go as far as we can, which basically would be about to the Baptist Church, and then all the way over basically to Brushy Creek, just past the Sonic, all the way to that point. And we would look at both sides of 205 in the event that you were wanting to pick that up. And we'd come up with costs on what that would cost to do it, and then we'd come up with a phased plan. And then you can bite off and do whatever you want to do at whatever time you want to do, or have that master plan and have developers actually build that plan at their cost. So our proposal was really a two-prong approach. That was the overall wastewater design for the commercial properties. And I should mention there's really two different routes that we can take. There is a take point along Via Toscana at the entrance of Sonoma Verde. And that's the most logical one and the least expensive to get to. But there's also the opportunity to go down 550 with a gravity line and come in the backside of Sonoma Verde into the actual lift station, which would provide a deeper sewer so you could serve more areas. So we would look at both those options. And the proposal, our fee is basically in half, and or half of it would be to do the master plan, and then the other half would be to do a phase one, which would actually be plans that you could build to serve the existing corner that you have now at 550 and 205, the Polani property, Mr. Whittle's property, the Brookshire's property, and so forth. And those would be full development of plans, specifications. Our proposal includes bidding assistance, construction observation if you decide to move forward to actually build the project. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've left out, Lisa. We'd also look at the possibility of lift stations, and the impact and how much more you could serve, and again, try to give you a comprehensive wastewater plan for that area.
Chris, would that go all the way, would your plans go all the way on the north side of 552 to the end of the retail area?
Yes. Yeah.
So in the cost estimate you provided to us, that would go that far from the Baptist church to the...
We would investigate that entire area, yes, ma'am, and on both sides to tell you what would need to be done and the cost implications. So you can decide, or again, we're not advocating that the city build any or all of it, but you'd have a plan that whenever somebody came in, they'd know what they were expected to do, and we would even help you with the determination of how do you determine what the participation cost is. And I should mention, while my firm, FC CUNY Corporation, we did, most of our work was in private development. We did some work for City of Heath, Rockwall. We did some municipal work. The firm I'm with now, Tignall Perkins, about 75% of their work is municipal work. We work in Plano, Frisco, so we've got a lot of, done a lot of master planning and a lot of expertise in that area. So we could help with impact studies and, wastewater fees and those things as you needed.
And Mayor, if I might add, it's not all about commercial. One of the other things that we've been talking about as staff is that sooner or later we will have to select a fire station site. It would be ideal if that could be on sewer as well, and more than likely it's going to be somewhere along that retail area or close to it. And I would just hate to see a new facility go in and have to put it on the septic system.
Okay. And there is one thing that I know came up in some of the discussions that Lisa mentioned, some of the citizens that I guess have come before and were concerned, I think, when the Polani development was being discussed. And it's important for me to explain to you, and I don't mean to be patronizing, but I know you guys don't design wastewater systems every day. So the way the Sonoma Verde system is set up and the way most municipal systems are designed, you design for the peak flow, which occurs in residential areas based on the usage in the morning and in the evening when people are taking showers. And so the Sonoma Verde has the ability to serve the commercial areas because the use on commercial areas is in a non-peak time. So when that plant was designed and the lift station was designed and the storage capacity and everything that went into that, the pledge of the developers in Sterling 1 when they did that was to provide the commercial capacity along 205. So if you have citizens that come and say, hey, we don't want you to take away our capacity for our development, that's not a problem. It's not an issue. That was incorporated in that design. Also for the school site that will be built someday, and also for the middle school. I think you guys realize there's a middle school site near City Hall. So when that's developed, that would also be a non-peak use. So I just wanted to mention that in case that ever came up.
Chris, thanks for the clarification on that, because that was definitely an issue a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think any consultant will tell, that's just the way you design them. And again, unless you had something that was a commercial activity that was very unusual, but for restaurants, retail, office buildings, just about any commercial use you can think of, it's non-peak flow.
And your numbers that you're going off of is like complete build out, school, all the homes,
yes, ma'am,
and everything. It's not just what's there now.
That's correct. Well, and that's a great question. The lift station that's at Sonoma Verde was built for capacity of the entire build. And I say the build out of Sonoma Verde, the commercial development of the schools, and there's 400 additional taps that were built into the system, residential taps. And again, those additional residential taps are actually owned by the City of McLendon-Chisholm and Sterling 1. There's in the part of the developer's agreement. I think 60 of those were allocated to the school district. They paid for those. You got part of your revenue for those. The lift station is there, and the pumps that are in the lift station now are sized for the first several phases of the project. At some point in time, those pumps will need to be replaced with larger pumps, or a third pump will be added. And we're monitoring that flow with the Sonoma Ray development. But all the main lines are in place to take it all the way to Heath. So yes, it is. We'd be looking at it as a total capacity, because that's the way it was designed. And the reason all the pumps weren't in place now, there's certain flow rates that you have to maintain, and maximum and minimum. So we couldn't put it all at once. You have to kind of stage it. But there's monies that have been allocated as part of the tap fees and the connection fees. They'll be allocated and paid for by the developer as that gets expanded.
All right.
I should mention, Mayor, that it would require a budget amendment because we didn't originally budget for it. However, we do have surplus this year, so that would be enough to cover.
Okay.
Surplus from
We budgeted more than what we needed for our expected expenses this year. So we're in a position this year, we're not always, but in this particular year, we could cover the expense.
Can we take it out of the sewer account at all, or?
No, I don't think so.
Chris, as far as the layout and design of the system, and again, this is probably a stupid question, but does the expansion of 205, so let's say that we agree to do this and we get you to design the system now, but then we don't really act on it for a few years. Is that still going to be applicable?
Yes, and here that's a great question. It's a great question. Part of the reason our fees are, well, they are what they are, but part of what we will do is we've actually already collected some data from TxDOT, and we're in conversation with them. And if we move forward, we'll have all their expansion plans, and we're going to design it to the ultimate build out. And the reason we're doing that is it's actually, you're in an advantageous position, because once that we know where their right of way, and they pretty well have defined that, they're actually contacting property owners now. Once we know where their right of way is, we have the right to run the city sewer line in their right of way. So it's actually less expensive to build it now. We won't have to acquire easements from those private property owners. TxDOT will do that for you. So our plan would be to design it, have it in the new future right of way, have it there so you can, and that actually is the most logical place. When the corridor that goes down 205 for commercial is essentially, it varies in width along the Whittle property that was, what's left over from the Chisholm Crossing phases, and the part that Mr. Polani is purchasing in Berkshire's varies from 150 to 300 feet deep. So we can serve all that basically by putting the line at the front along the frontage. We don't have to worry about getting into the areas of Chisholm Crossing, and pretty well down in the right of way for 205. It should be able to be deep enough to still serve all those commercial properties.
So from a cost standpoint, as far as if we decided to move forward now before the expansion of 205, it may be more cost effective for us to proceed theoretically with the construction now versus if 205 has been expanded. Is that correct?
Actually, it doesn't. The timing would be to do the expansion once the right-of-way has been acquired by TxDOT, and then install it. And then you can do it now, or either during, before, or after the construction. We design it for ultimate build-out, and that's part of what we've got to do is make sure that we're deep enough as the new Highway 205 section is going to be suppressed and have curb and gutter to collect the drainage instead of the bar ditches. And the other part of our proposal that we have to do, and we would do that in the first phase, is the Kinder Morgan pipeline runs right through where we've got to cross. We either got to go over it or above it, and so we have to go and do it's a high pressure gas line. We have to go and do what's called a wet tap, a wet bore to determine the depth on that, so we can decide which way we're going to go. We can go above it or below it. So that's part of our analysis to do that. We have that included in our proposal.
Now, will we need to do some work with TxDOT because, since we didn't have sewer, I'm not sure that that's in the 205 plan has for those drainage areas.
Well, the rules of TxDOT are that you are allowed as a public utility or as a municipality to run municipal water lines, sewer lines, telecommunication lines in their right of way. The kicker is if they expand and you're in the right of way and their expansion would require the removal or the relocation of those lines, the cities have to pay for it, okay? If it's in an easement and they expand, then the TxDOT pays for it, okay, if they have to go acquire it. So what I'm saying is we'll know where their ultimate build-out is, their ultimate right-of-way, and you're allowed to use that. That's part of what the right-of-way, right-of-way is for transport of public goods, services, water, sewer. So we would coordinate that, and when we have contacts with the engineer, we'd let them know what we're doing, and it wouldn't be a surprise to them. We'd work with them and obviously make them aware of our design. And submit, part of the process is to submit our design to then make sure that they know what's going on, they can account for it.
Is there a timeline on when they'll know when the easements have been?
My understanding is they're in the process now of, they've already determined where the right-of-way is, and they'll get it one way or another. They're either going to buy it and negotiate, or they're going to condemn it through condemnation.
They're in negotiation. We go to the Roads Consortium meeting monthly, and they've already spoken to the folks that they want, the land that they want to acquire, and they're in negotiation.
But what I'm asking is there a
offers or
timeline
they're
on
in the
it?
process.
Yeah, it's right now, it's probably in the negotiation. I know, and one of the things that Mr. Whittle talked about, I know Lisa talked to him about whether he'd participate in the construction of the line. And he said, hey, as soon as I get the thing worked out with TxDOT, I'm ready to go, and I'll be happy to pay my portion of it to get it done, because it makes his property more valuable, so.
To answer your question, Judy, that's TxDOT. They're not going to give you a definite, they're going to have it done on this date, that when they tell you they're in negotiations.
But what I'm asking is, the reason I'm asking this is because if we do have people come to us as a business and they're wanting, such as the Polani, we don't have an answer for them, but we want to tell them we're working on it, but
Well, I think,
make sure that they're.
Sure, and I'm sorry, let me see if I can answer that. And this may be more of a legal question, but my understanding is that, again, the right-of-way has been decided. I mean, the road, it's been designed. So it's not a question of where it's going to be, it's a question of when they're going to come to terms with the property owners. The fact that they've established it means that we can go ahead and design where it needs to go.
Okay.
Do you understand?
No, but what I'm saying is, like, they're in a hurry to kind of get their business started, and if we can just let them know, hey,
Sure.
give us 6 months, give us 2 weeks, I don't know what but something, just keep the communications going.
Absolutely.
And anybody that wants to.
And if the timing doesn't work out, there's always the opportunity, if they're in a hurry, that we could route it where we know it's out of their property, on their property, so that we can move forward. So there's those options too.
Just want to keep the lines of communication.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
The question, Lisa?
It just seems that coming up with the design first, rather than trying to talk to individual developers and chase down who wants to participate, and then starting from that end, it seems like this is a better end to start with. It's a plan that will serve us for years, whether we develop sooner or later. And also we have that fire station location that we need to consider as well.
I agree.
So these plans that we're going to get back, surveying, design services, and service utility engineering, you said those are going to be valid up until the point that 205 has another expansion. How long will those plans be valid for, or this survey?
Well, I guess the survey that we'll be doing would be the survey. We have topographic information, and we will obtain all the TxDOT plans, and we'll know what their proposed grades and their profiles for their street is, and of course their cross section. And I mean, I can't tell you, Councilman, how long that expansion is going to be in place, but I would venture to say it's 20 years plus. I mean, we've had it that long. So, I mean, the plan that we would come up with would be, again, the option is, if you tell us you want to, plan for 100 years down the road, we can figure out a corridor where it needs to go. But I think the practical thing is to follow within this current proposed expansion, their ultimate expansion, 6 lanes and so forth.
You're not going to be able to get an answer on that, because the way they're building the expansion now, TxDOT can't tell you that if that expansion is done, and I'm going to use hypotheticals, that expansion is done next year, they're not going to be able to tell you, well, it's good for 5 years, and then we're going to have to expand it. They're not going to know, because we don't know what kind of traffic is.
But my understanding is I'm sorry.
My curiosity is that us getting these plans, and let's say hypothetically they're good for 20 years. Okay, if we purchase these plans now, based upon his fee schedule changing per year, how much will be, if we do get it done now, hypothetically, how much more valuable it would be, how much more expensive it would be if we waited and did it later.
Well, I guess, again, so the two products that we're proposing, which is what we were asked to do, it's a two-prong approach. The first thing you'll get is basically a wastewater plan study for the commercial corridor. And that's going to be, preliminary design, conceptual design to show you the route, the size of the lines, if you need lift stations, where they would be, and a general location of where to install them. That won't be a full-blown design, and that's really to come up with a cost of the overall system, and quite frankly, to determine how far you want to serve. I mean, you can, with modern pumps, and you can serve the entire city if you want to, but there's a point of practicality where we go, look, this is really as far as we want to go. If somebody else wants to do it, we'll let them tackle that problem later. We're basically just trying to figure out what can Sonoma Verde, the existing system that you have with the capacity, how far can we go gravity, and if we want to go further, how many pump stations would we need to do that? So that's kind of your wastewater master plan. It's not a defined exact, it's going to be exactly in this spot. It's going to be within some corridor along the new proposed Highway 205 right-of-way. The construction plans that we were talking about doing would be, again, what I would call phase one, that would serve basically your existing commercial property at Sonic and along 205, the Palomba property, and down to tie it into Sonoma Verde by gravity in either place. Those plans would be specifically designed so that you could construct that prior to or after TxDOT does their expansion within a reasonable period of time. Conceivably, you could start construction in 6 months, and it would be a facility that would provide you revenue, provide commercial growth, commercial opportunity for, probably realistically a 20-year period. My understanding is that the way TxDOT is proposing to do their road construction is they're going to buy all the right-of-way they think they're going to need for ultimate build out of McLendon-Chisholm, Terrell, Rockwall County, and they're going to start from the outside and work their way in. So if we're on the outside in that right-of-way corridor, that line should be safe, and hopefully it'll never have to be moved. And I can't say that for sure, but I think there's a high degree of probability that line will stay intact for many, many years to come, if you or the developer decide to go ahead and proceed with the construction of those plans. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question, I hope?
Actually, my question was, the plans that you're going to give us, they're good for an extended period of time, but how your fee schedule changes if we buy it early versus us buying it.
Oh, if we were to do the whole thing?
No, I mean, like,
would your fee schedule change if we were doing it now, or doing it 4 years from now?
Yes, but not appreciably. There's a cost of living adjustment and inflation factors that would go into it, and there may be other obstacles that are built, other facilities that we'd have to survey or go around. So yeah, it could, but it wouldn't be. It's not going to double. It might go up 3 or 4% a year.
Just knowing that we're going to redo the comp plan, the more information that we have going into those types of revisions, the better. Most cities do have like a master sewer plan, a master water plan, and they plan, for the future.
And I think the reason that we're opposed to, I think this is a very reasonable price. This is basically the rates that I would have charged, had I been still independent, because I'd kind of already been talking to Lisa before the merger took place. I've got all the plans on Sonoma. I know the lift station capacities. I've got all that history. So hope that's a value to the city if you decide to move forward. So
I did ask Chris to do the proposal because I felt like he was uniquely qualified because he did design the Sonoma system.
All right. Chris, thank you.
Thank you. I understand you guys may be talking about this in executive session. If it's all right, this is my birthday. I'm going to go home and have dinner with my wife. But
no, you got to say.
If you have any questions, please let me know and be happy to answer them.
On behalf of the city, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right, guys, we're going to move into executive session. We've got 3 different items on there, so I'm going to read them all. Recess into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 1.071 consultation with the city attorney on the matter in which the duty of the attorney to the government body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding the proposal of engineering design services for a sanitary sewer line on Highway 205. That's the first one. Next one, recess into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property discusses Block 2, Block 1, and Lot 3. Block 1 situated in the King Latham Survey, abstract number 133, a total of 6.98 acres. Conveyance plat for State Highway 205/550 addition located at the southwest corner of State Highway 205 and 550. The next one, recess into executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with the city attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the state disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding current status of contract and performance of professional consultants, which may include city engineer, city planner, city attorney, building official, financial advisor, and environmental health specialist. Got all three of them down. All right, it is now 7:46. We are recessed into executive session. That was not fun. You got a wish.
Nothing really. I mean, it's Thursday night, so.
Yes.
Fix that when I get back.
You ready? It is 8:24, we're back from executive session. On 8.3, we'll go back to 7.6, the discussion and action during the proposal from Teague, Dahl, and Perkins. Entertain any motions on that regarding the proposal
I'm sorry,
on
I was
the
just getting my
sewer
computer up.
stuff? Or engineering design service?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed engineering design service for a sanitary sewer line, HO2, or Highway 205. Get tongue-tied, as written.
All right, I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right, now we'll go to the other two executive sessions. The first one's 8.1. That was in accordance with 551072. Do I have to read that all again? Lisa?
I would just read the last part.
Okay. Regarding current status of contracts, performance, or professional consultants, which may include city engineer, city planner, city attorney, building officials, financial advisor, and environmental health specialist. From time to time, we re-review these contracts from year to year. We'll re-review these contracts, and we're at that point in time. So, to where we can review the contracts of city engineers, city planners. Do I have any motions on
Mayor?
any of those?
I would like to make a motion that we would, regarding the city engineer and city planner, that
We should make it two separate motions.
okay? So the first motion I'd like to make, walk with me here, Mr. Hall, to notify the existing engineer and planner that we want to put the contract on a 30-day, put them on a 30-day notice, basically,
Of termination.
for termination of the existing contract. And my second part of that motion, do we need to act on that one separately?
If you're going
or-
to move into the planner, then yeah, that should be the first motion, have the council vote on that, and then come back with the plan, if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so I'll do each one of them separately. Okay.
Oh, well, it needs to be done. If it's doing anything else about surgery, that needs to be taken care of after any motions.
Say that again.
Yeah, I missed that part.
Do it.
Each one has to be a separate motion.
Okay.
So do a
So,
planner and do that.
gotcha. My first motion will be to put the city engineer contract on a 30-day
Termination.
30-day termination. And then second motion will be to
We
do-
need
We got to vote.
We need to have
Oh,
votes.
sorry.
All right, I've got a motion to do 30-day termination of the city engineer contract.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right.
Second motion will be to put the city planner's contract on a 30-day termination notice as well.
All right, I've got a motion for termination on the city planner contract. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we need to do
The F.
That's
The-
fine. I'll do it next.
Gotcha.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Then at that point, I would give direction to Lisa to, is it called RF?
RFQs,
RF
yes, sir. It's under
Qs?
2254, the government code, it's a Professional Services Act. So, which is different from the RFPs, request for proposal under 252 of the government code. So both of those would fall under 2254 of the government code,
All right.
RFQ.
we just request for qualifications for the two professional
Yes.
services?
All right. And is that it on that one? We're done with that one?
The RFQ does not, our RFQ is not going to prohibit the last vendors from applying again either.
No.
Correct.
Yes.
No, anybody can apply.
Anybody that wants to be considered
Yeah.
needs to submit the RFQ at the time.
Right.
And when do y'all want to get the RFQ out? Do you have a specific time? Or just ASAP?
As soon as possible.
ASAP, okay. And how long do you want it to run?
Lisa,
I'd suggest 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks will work. All right. So that one's done. 8.2, we had no action on that one. That one was over the property, real property described as Lot 2, Block 1, Lot 3, Block 1. No action at this time. All right, moving on. 11.1, building reports. Anybody have any questions on that? Or
Yes.
building official report?
Lisa, am I reading it correct that our building permits have doubled from January 2019?
Yes, that second phase of Sonoma Verde, that's where most of it's coming from, and they've just pretty much sold out all of their lots, and those building permits are just coming in.
Okay.
At this time, when we get to the financial report, I think you'll see a huge jump in the revenue we've received.
Nice. Any other questions? Let's move on to the sheriff's report. Any questions on the sheriff's report for January? Okay. Financial report. Any questions on the financial report for January?
Yes, item number 302 under revenue. The FPC Electric, is that Farmers Electric? It looks like we had a $90,000 piece of revenue in on that.
Yes, that's their franchise, not their
Do we-
franchise
have
fee.
we been getting that all the?
We get it every year.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not that amount, but we do get, based on their customer base, we get them to check
It
every
seems
year.
like it's much higher than it was.
Probably have more customers.
Well,
Because of the additional customers in Sonoma
Yeah.
Valley. Okay, great. And this is a minute thing on 506. Do we have a water issue here?
We're not sure we've solved it. We're still working on it. We do think we had a leak. We thought we had that leak fixed, but then we had all this rain, so we really couldn't tell for a little bit if we had one or not. I think at this time, I haven't noticed any additional puddles. I think we've got it solved, but we're going to watch that next bill, and we have, how many times have they been out here? 2 or 3? There may have actually been
Can you give
2.
us any cut on any deal on that?
It's High Point and no.
Because sometimes they give you one piece of grace period.
Not this
Not
case.
from any customer I've talked to.
We have.
We had a
Maybe
similar,
there were 2 separate leaks.
we had a similar thing last year where we had kind of an inexplicable, significant water bill. And I know there were trees that had been planted and all that, but it never really added up, and I don't know what ever happened. Gotcha.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. The fire department report. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to the next one, CWD report. I've got one thing on that one. It's not really a question. I want to thank the council members that responded. An individual had a complaint and they threw it on social media. Council member told them that needed to be addressed with CWD, but also, that they were more than welcome to call the city. Just want to reiterate to everybody, if somebody has a problem with that trash service, it's hard for them to fix it if they haven't notified the trash service first. Notifying us, it's just double work because we have to turn around and notify them. They need to notify them first. And then if they're not getting any response, I have no problem with them calling staff or council and saying, hey, I called them and nothing's happening. I saw the response that Shelley got from CWD on the individual that was complaining and how they attempted to resolve it, and the gentleman even admitted that there were errors in their employees saying they did something and they had not done it when they said they were going to, that there was, I guess when you want to call it, a lapse in judgment by one of their employees, not taking care of it when they said they would.
And then when they did take care of it at an appropriate time.
Yes, and then took care of it, yeah, when I would still be sleeping. So, but they did address it. They did admit where they were at fault, and was handled. So, any questions on the report?
And Mayor, I know there's been numerous reports from citizens as far as recyclables being tossed in the same truck. Is that an ongoing discussion with CWD, or where are we on that? Do you know, Lisa?
To my knowledge, it has not been an issue.
I haven't heard that.
I haven't heard it.
That happened to me last week.
Their reports are, this is why I didn't give them to you before, because I didn't really provide a lot of information, but on their complaint log, you'll just see that it says service issue recyclable, service issue trash, so it doesn't really tell me what the issue is.
Right.
It could be a missed pickup, or it could be that somebody made a complaint such as that.
But if you do see that, or any of your neighbors see that they are mixing the regular trash with the recycle, that person needs to call CWD right away to get it, so it gets as a documented issue.
I can't speak for any of the other subdivisions. I can speak for my street in Sonoma Verde. It's very obvious that they don't throw them in the same truck because my trash may get picked up at 8 or 9 in the morning, but a lot of times if I get home around 5 in the afternoon, they haven't picked up my recycle yet. Sometimes they don't hit it till 5 or 6. So it's kind of obvious they're not throwing it in the same truck, or if they are, they're throwing it in a truck that's already been emptied. So, but again, if they're not calling them first, it's hard to track that issue. Updates, discussion, and direction to staff. I don't have anything there. Reports and announcements from me. I did the state of the city address at the luncheon the other day. We're getting close to, the kids are getting antsy. Spring break's fixing to happen in like 2 weeks. Just remember, guys, by the time when we hit our next council meeting, spring break will have already started. We'll already be a couple of days into it. Be wary. There are going to be a lot of teenagers out there driving. There's going to be a lot of other kids out there. We've got to be wary of that.
Mayor, you may want to remind council that we do have that special meeting on March the 4th.
Yes.
It should be very short.
Yes, and that's at 6:30, correct?
Yes.
Same time as normal? Okay. Other than that, I can't think of anything right at the moment. Lorna, you're up.
Trudy and I, Councilmember Western and I went yesterday down to Austin for the Rockwell County Days at the state capitol. It was very informative. We heard from Representative Holland and Senator Hall and had tours of both sides of the building, and met with the Supreme Court, it was very informative, and it's what the gentleman talked about today about completing the 2020 census is really important because there will be redistricting done, and we've got to make sure that we have all of our citizens accounted for.
Absolutely.
There is a link, just so you know, there is a link on the front page of our website. You have to kind of scroll all the way to the bottom, but there is a link that does give you some census information.
Right. Nathan?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Reminder for folks, we got early voting going on through the end of the week, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
And then is the first Tuesday, March the 3rd.
Yes.
So make sure you guys get out and vote accordingly.
And City Hall will be a voting, although it was not a early vote location, it will be a voting day location.
Yeah.
And obviously, rockwallvotes.com is a good information source. I just want to reiterate the Rockwall Big Event as well. That's something that I think we're kind of looking at for the library, little library here on site to be installed at that point in time. So I would encourage our citizens to look at getting involved here locally.
Absolutely. Jim?
Nothing, economic development, just saw the resolution, so things are moving forward there.
All right. William?
I have nothing but since the Economic Development Board has been officially taken care of, anybody who is interested in applying, please submit your application. That way it can be filled.
Yes.
Be greatly appreciated.
Applications by March 20th, so we can appoint
Yeah,
at the
by
following
March
meeting.
20th. All right, guys, if there is nothing else, it is exactly 9 o'clock straight up. Meeting adjourned.